Have you ever noticed that you can, like, totally get lost in an English book or movie, follow conversations, no problem.
Right.
But then when it's your turn to actually speak,
Yeah.
it's like your tongue just, like, turns to lead.
It's so common.
It is. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Okay.
The fascinating world of spoken English fluency.
Right.
Specifically, why understanding English doesn't automatically mean you can, like, speak it fluently.
Yeah.
We've got a whole stack of research articles, expert tips, you name it.
Cool.
And we're going to pull out the aha moments
Love it.
that'll help you crack the code.
Awesome.
So this gap between understanding and speaking is super common.
Incredibly common.
And one of the things that our sources talk about is this idea of muscle memory.
Ooh, interesting.
Or rather, like, the lack of it.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Think about it. It's just like a musician needing to train their fingers, right?
Uh-huh.
To hit the right notes.
Yeah.
We need to train our mouths to produce those English sounds smoothly and naturally.
So it's not enough to just know the words. You have to actually, like,
you have to build
those pathways.
Exactly. Those physical pathways so they just flow effortlessly.
So it's almost like going to the gym, but for your tongue.
Uh-huh. I like that, yeah.
What kind of workout are we talking about here?
Well, one really effective technique is called shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay.
And it's surprisingly simple, but super powerful.
Okay.
You pick a short audio clip,
Right.
like a movie scene, a podcast.
Oh, like this one.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you shadow the speaker.
Mm-hmm.
You mimic their pronunciation, their rhythm, how their voice goes up and down, their intonation.
So is it kind of like karaoke?
Yes.
But for speaking.
Exactly. You're syncing up with that vocal track in your head.
I love that. So what's so great about shadowing?
What I love about it is it bypasses that mental translator
Oh, interesting.
that so many of us rely on, you know?
It makes sense.
Instead of thinking about all those grammar rules and vocab,
Yeah.
you're absorbing the patterns of spoken English
Directly.
almost like downloading fluency right into your brain.
That is incredible. But how do we pick the right material?
That's a good question.
Should we be aiming for Shakespeare or something a little easier?
I would say choose something slightly above your comfort level.
Okay.
Challenging enough to push you, but not so hard you get discouraged.
Got it.
And make sure it's something you enjoy.
Right.
You know, could be your favorite movie characters,
Yeah.
stand-up comedians, TED Talks, anything.
So it's like finding a workout buddy for your English.
Yes.
Someone who pushes you but keeps it fun.
Exactly.
I like that. But I imagine even with shadowing, the fear of making mistakes can still be there.
Absolutely. Fear is a huge roadblock for lots of learners.
For sure.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Mistakes, they're not the enemy.
Oh, interesting.
They're actually the stepping stones
Oh,
to fluency.
yeah.
Think of a little kid learning to walk. They fall countless times, but they get back up.
Yeah.
Each stumble is just feedback, helping them get better.
So it's about changing our mindset from don't make mistakes to mistakes help me grow.
Exactly.
You got it.
I love that. But how do we put that into practice?
One powerful way is to just speak more, you know?
Okay.
Even if you're talking to yourself.
So like talking to the mirror is good.
Yes. It might feel weird at first, but trust me.
Okay.
It lets you experiment with different vocabulary, try out phrases, and get used to hearing your own voice speaking English.
It's like your own personal language lab.
Exactly.
I'm sold. But what about practicing with, like, an actual person?
Right.
What if you don't have those native English speakers around you all the time?
Well, there's so many resources out there.
Like what?
Language exchange apps are amazing.
Okay.
You can connect with people from all over the world
Wow.
who are also learning English.
So you can practice together.
Exactly. Share tips, make new friends.
That's like a built-in support system. Yes, exactly.
What about those times when you do have a chance to speak with a native speaker?
Yeah.
And your brain just freezes?
Oh, I know that feeling.
Like, what do you do?
The key is to simplify.
Really?
It might sound counterintuitive,
Okay.
but starting with simple sentences actually helps you sound more fluent.
Interesting.
When we try to get all complex, we overload our brains, and that's when the hesitation and errors come in.
So it's like learning an instrument. You start with the basics.
Exactly.
Okay.
Basic scales and chords
Before you try.
before you attempt a big concerto.
Gotcha. Can you give me an example of, like, how to simplify without losing the meaning?
Absolutely. Let's say you want to say, yesterday I went to the supermarket to purchase some groceries for the week.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
Right. You can simplify that to, yesterday I went to the store and bought food.
See, that's much easier.
It is.
It still gets the point across.
Exactly.
Without all the extra words.
Precisely. Like decluttering your sentences.
I like it. This is making so much sense. Good.
Before we go to the next part of our deep dive, I want to go back to something you said about thinking in English.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds so powerful.
It is.
But also kind of scary.
I get it.
How do you actually do that?
It's about creating that inner monologue in English.
Okay.
Narrate your day, even have imaginary conversations.
All in English?
All in English.
So instead of thinking, I'm making coffee, I think, I'm brewing a cup of coffee.
Exactly. And as you get more comfortable, start tackling bigger thoughts.
Ooh.
Like analyzing a news story, describing your emotions, even having a debate in your head.
All in English?
All in English. It's like a full immersion.
Wow. But wouldn't that be exhausting?
It's a process.
Yeah.
It takes time and effort.
Okay.
There will be times when you slip back into your native language, and that's totally fine.
It's okay.
The key is to gently nudge yourself back into English mode.
Just like any new habit.
Exactly. You practice, it becomes more natural.
And here's a tip. Surround yourself with English as much as you can.
Okay.
Watch movies without subtitles. Listen to podcasts, audiobooks, read English books and articles.
It's like creating an English bubble.
Precisely. The more you immerse yourself,
Yeah.
the easier it becomes to think in English.
And then you can speak more fluently.
Exactly.
It's like we're hacking our brains for fluency.
That's a great way to put it. It's working smarter, not harder.
I love that. And speaking of working smarter,
Yes.
in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore even more strategies for bypassing that mental translator and expanding your vocabulary in a fun and effective way.
I can't wait.
Stay tuned.
See you soon.
Yeah,
All right, so we're back and ready for more tips.
let's dive into some more of these strategies to really boost fluency.
You got it. So we talked earlier about bypassing that mental translator.
Yeah, that thing.
It feels so ingrained, right?
It really does. It's been stuck in my brain since I started learning English.
I totally get it. And it's super common, especially if you've been learning mostly through textbooks and grammar exercises. We get so used to dissecting language that it becomes automatic even when we're trying to speak naturally.
Okay, so how do we break free from that? Do we just throw out all the textbooks and grammar rules?
Not necessarily. Grammar and vocab are important, but the key is to shift our focus.
To what?
From analyzing the language to experiencing it.
Experiencing it? What does that even mean?
Think about how kids learn their first language.
Okay.
They don't start with verb conjugations, right?
They
learn by listening, imitating, experimenting. They're immersed from day one.
So we need to recreate that immersive environment even if we're not surrounded by native speakers all the time.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to do that is to consume authentic English content.
What do you mean by authentic?
I'm talking movies, shows, music, podcasts, even eavesdropping on conversations if you can.
Oh,
The trick is to really pay attention, not just to the words, but to how they say it.
So it's about observing how native speakers actually use the language in real life, almost like an anthropologist or something.
Love that analogy. It's about picking up on the nuances, the pronunciation, intonation, rhythm, even their body language.
So all those little things.
Exactly. All those subtle cues that go beyond just the words themselves.
That's fascinating, but isn't that just passive listening? Didn't we talk about needing active practice?
Absolutely. Passive listening is great to start, but you got to make it active.
Okay. How?
And one of the most effective ways to do that is through, you guessed it, shadowing.
Shadowing. So we're not just repeating the words, we're trying to absorb those subtle things too.
Exactly. As you tune into those details, your speech will naturally start to sound more authentic, more English,
It's like we're absorbing the music of the language, not just the notes.
Exactly.
But what about when we want to focus on specific vocabulary? How can we learn new words without those endless flashcards?
The key is to learn words in context, not just by themselves.
Oh, okay.
Instead of just memorizing definitions, pay attention to how they use those words in real situations.
Like in the wild, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you come across a new word or phrase you like, don't just write it down.
What should we do?
Use it. Create a sentence or a little story with that word, something relevant to you.
Oh, that's a good idea. So it's like making the word your own.
Yes. Personalize it so it sticks.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
But what about those times when you have the thought in your head,
Uh-huh.
but you just can't find the words to say it in English?
Oh, well, I know that feeling, like a mental traffic jam.
Yeah.
It often happens because we try to translate directly from our native language.
Okay.
But remember, languages don't always match up perfectly.
Right, right.
Sometimes the best way to express an idea in English is to find a whole new way of saying it.
So it's about thinking outside the translation box.
Exactly.
That's a good way to put it.
And the more you do that,
Yeah.
the more you develop that English brain.
Oh, interesting.
Thinking in English directly.
Not translating all the time.
Exactly.
This is powerful stuff. But doesn't that mean we might make more mistakes?
Mistakes are going to happen. It's part of the process. And remember, we learn from them.
True.
The more you use new language, the more comfortable you'll become.
So it's about being brave and embracing the messiness.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Like if you're not sure how to say something.
Yeah. Ask a native speaker.
Good tip.
Most people are happy to help.
They probably appreciate that you're trying.
Exactly.
This is so encouraging. It's like you're giving us permission to play with the language, have fun with it.
That's what it should be. Language learning should be an adventure.
I like that.
And speaking of adventures, in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to tackle one of the most challenging but rewarding parts of English.
Uh-oh.
Idioms. Oh boy, those are so tricky.
They can be, but they're so fun and expressive.
I'm a little scared, but also excited to dive into that.
Don't worry. We'll give you all the tools you need to navigate the wonderful world of idioms, and we'll have some laughs along the way.
All right, sounds good. All right, so we're back, and I'm ready to tackle these idioms.
Yeah, let's do it.
They're so interesting, but they can be really confusing, you know?
They could be a real head-scratcher. Like imagine trying to translate kick the bucket word for word.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
You'd end up with something pretty weird.
that's true.
But even though they're quirky, idioms are so important for really mastering spoken English.
So how do we even approach them? Like, the thought of memorizing a whole dictionary of idioms is a little overwhelming.
Oh, for sure. Rote memorization is definitely not the way to go.
Okay, good.
Because idioms aren't just random phrases, you see.
What are they then?
They're reflections of the culture, the history, the humor of the people who speak the language.
Ah, so it's more about understanding the cultural context
Yeah.
rather than just memorizing the words.
Yes. And that understanding comes from being exposed to them.
Okay, so like the more you hear them.
Exactly. The more you immerse yourself in real English movies, books, conversations.
Yeah.
Start to pick up on them.
That makes sense. It's like you're training your ear
Exactly.
to recognize those patterns.
Right. Even if you don't understand them at first.
But how do we go from just recognizing them to actually, using them ourselves?
That's where active observation comes in.
Active observation, okay.
So when you hear an idiom, don't just let it pass you by.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to the context, the tone of voice, the facial expressions, what's going on in this situation.
Oh, that's interesting. It's like we're becoming idiom detectives.
I love that. Gathering clues to figure out the meaning.
Right.
And once you think you've got it, try using it yourself. Don't be afraid to experiment.
Even if I'm not totally sure I'm using it right.
Exactly. It's all part of the process.
But what if I sound awkward or use it in the wrong situation? I don't want to embarrass myself.
I get it, but honestly, mistakes are how we learn.
True.
Someone might correct you, and that helps you remember the right way to use it.
So it's about being brave and accepting those little mistakes.
Absolutely. And the more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
Yeah.
Plus, using idioms makes your English so much more colorful and interesting.
I can imagine. I'm already starting to see idioms in a new light, not as obstacles, but as ways to make my language richer.
That's the spirit. Remember, fluency isn't about being perfect.
It's not.
Nope. It's about communicating clearly and feeling good doing it.
That's a good point.
And idioms help you do that.
Wow, this whole deep dive has been amazing. We covered so much.
We did. From understanding those mental blocks to tips for pronunciation, vocabulary, even idioms.
It's been a journey.
It has. And remember, the journey to fluency never really ends. Just keep practicing, celebrate the small wins,
Yeah.
and never stop exploring the English language.
Beautifully said. To everyone listening out there who's working on their fluency, keep practicing, keep experimenting. You've got this.
You're not alone on this journey.
Exactly. We're all in this together. We can't wait to hear about your progress. Until next time, happy speaking.